Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Okay, folks, welcome back to the 4th box. Pops, you are joining us from an undisclosed location. Every time we come to the 4th box, it feels like we are in a different state, a different house, different background. Perfect. What's up?
Well, yeah, greetings, friends and 4th box listeners. I'm very happy to be joining you tonight from one of the Finger Lakes, beautiful Finger Lakes. You might be able to see behind me before the show's over tonight, the water. I know it's kind of a glare right now, but I'm up along the lake shore of one of the beautiful Finger Lakes in upstate New York. I know it's a little bit of a commie land here, but I have ventured forth into New York State to come to you tonight, and we're very happy to have everybody joining us as we begin our, I believe, is it 80?
I think so.
80th episode, and what I wanted to do tonight, get started, because it's probably been a couple episodes since we did it. For anybody that is new to the show, just a quick reminder about the 4th box and why we have named ourselves that. So back around 1832, a South Carolina politician, I think he may have been in state government or lieutenant governor or something like that, he coined the phrase 3 boxes to keep yourself free. And later on, then Frederick Douglass kind of expanded it to 4 boxes, and that kind of stayed with that. And the 4 boxes are basically the soapbox, which part of what we're exercising here tonight is our ability to use the soapbox and to share ideas and messages with like-minded and otherwise. That's the box number 1. And then box number 2 is the ballot box, which I think that's self-explanatory. We all have an opportunity to participate in the vote by, joining a party or otherwise. You don't have to be, although they probably won't know how to handle it if you're not registered to a major party. But there's no constitutional requirement for that. Thirdly, we have the jury box, which really has to do with jury nullification, which is a very seldom heard term today. But jury nullification really means that we, the people, have the power to nullify bad law, and that being a law that is not constitutionally based. And by participating in a jury trial, you have the right and the obligation to weigh the merits of the case and the merits of the law. And if it does not hold up to constitutional muster, you, of course, have an opportunity to cast your vote accordingly in a jury trial. And lastly, we have the 4th box, which really referred to the cartridge box or the ammo box. And we at the 4th box are here to arm you with knowledge, hopefully inspire you to take action, that being participating both in the previous 3 boxes thus mentioned, and that be sharing ideas, discussing openly your viewpoints, because in the republic which we are in, we are all entitled to have a voice, and we should be exercising that voice and not be ashamed to do so. So that's the history behind the 4th box. Goes well back, almost 200 years now, since that phrase was coined, but that is the basis of the 4th box.
Yeah, great place to start. The 4th box is considered the final option, right? It's the last box. It's the final box, the final way to preserve your freedom. And you just said it. This is not a new idea. This is 200 plus years old. This is as old as our country. And if they were thinking it then, how much worse has it gotten from the time, they were literally throwing tea in the harbor, because that was one of the big issues of the day, to what we're facing now. It's gotten pretty bad. So, like you said, our goal here is ultimately to utilize the first 3 boxes while asking the question, at what point does it bubble over to where there is no choice left? It doesn't mean we want it, but I know many people around this country are waiting for the moment because it feels like we're so close. Nobody wants it. We pray that we never come to it. But we have to realistically prepare for it and question how we got here and do our best to keep us from getting to that point by staying engaged and staying involved. So, great place to start us out. It's always good to come back to that before we get into an episode. I do think tonight is going to be a little bit of a crazy one, but before we get into it, I'll let you take us away with a toast.
Yeah, so toast tonight, as several of the last few have been. I have a couple of things that I'm raising my glass to, my beer can here. Number one, I want to toast Dr. Kirk Moore, and at the time I was preparing notes for this episode, it was still looking very likely that he was going to end up being incarcerated as a result of taking what he believed was a principled stand against forced vaccinations and putting something into people who he believed, and many of us believe, is very harmful, if not a death risk. So it now appears as though the DOJ has stepped in, and apparently, I don't have a whole lot of confirmation on it, but it does sound like the case is going to be dismissed. Either way, I raised my can of beer to Dr. Kirk Moore, who stood on principle and did what his Hippocratic oath required him to do, and that was make sure that he was not harming people that he was charged with looking after. So here's to Kirk. Secondarily, I want to toast your younger sister, my second child, Kendra, who turns 30 today, and just wishing her all the best. It's been a significant, the most biggest, best blessing in my life is to have the 3 kids that I do. And so I'm very happy and honored tonight to share a toast with our second child, Kendra, who is celebrating her 30th birthday today. So cheers, Kendra. I hope you're having a great evening.
Yeah, I'll cheers that one as I did the first one with my water, because as you know, we did celebrate her birthday over the last several days, and that involved an espresso martini tower, which, ooh, that will get ya. So I'm on the water train tonight.
I was quite sure when I saw the pictures of that very momentous looking and appropriate drink celebration that you guys were partaking in, that there might have been some lumps and bumps following that. So hopefully everybody's recovering, staying hydrated, and moving on from the grand celebration that you were able to partake in.
For sure. Okay. All right. Any other toasts to get out?
Well, that'll be it for the toast tonight, but I do have a quote, and this comes from a contemporary writer. I thought it was great. And it goes like this, a little bit of a lengthy one, but it's really great. When a government repeatedly shows disdain for its own laws, lies to the populace, crushes dissent, launches illegal wars, tortures at whim, conceals elite pedophiles, and uses its intelligence services to subvert democracy at home and abroad, what do you call that? You call it what it is, a criminal state. And you might recall several of us have called it that in the past. This is not a conspiracy. This is a timeline of betrayal, a partial ledger of treasons committed in the open that never appear before prosecutors. The only true conspiracy is that the people continue to stir the actors as if they are working in their interest. That comes from a writer by the name of Mark Powell, and the article may even be a book, but the article that I found it is pathocracy risen. Again, Mark Powell, I give all the credit to that. I think that is absolutely 100% spot on, a very well written quote, and I was happy to share that tonight. So if you get a chance, look up Mark Powell, and pathocracy risen is where I found that.
For sure. Yeah, it's a great place to start us off. Obviously, so much of the conversation tonight is going to be centered around this. I know last week we talked a lot about Epstein. I'm going to stay on this conversation. I'm not ready to give it up. This is a huge, huge deal. People think, okay, yeah, there's pedophilia going on in high levels of government around the world. And as if that's not bad enough, they're failing to realize that it's not just about exposing who these people are. It's about tearing down the entire system that has built these people up.
That's correct. This is stuff that nobody would tolerate. And because there are people in high places that have been implicated, all of a sudden now it appears as though the power of government is being directed to insulate them and protect them. We all, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Constitutionalist, Libertarian, all unaffiliated, we all should be upset by this. We all should be upset by government that protects its own illegal activity, and I don't care who's in office or what side of the aisle you consider yourself on. We all should be outraged and demanding complete and open transparency and solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that you, in your quote, mentioned that this itself is not a conspiracy. I mean, there's no reason to even go down the train of why people might think that it was. At this point, it is so out in the open. There's nothing that is able to be denied here. So we're not talking about the Epstein list and the pedophile ruling class of the world as a conspiracy, but we are going to talk a little bit about quote unquote conspiracies tonight. So I kind of have a long list that I want to run through, but we're going to start with something that is not a conspiracy at all. We're going to start by talking about how Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna brought forth an amendment to the House of Representatives that would have ultimately had everyone in the House vote on whether or not to release the Epstein files. These votes, of course, like every other vote, would have been made public. So we, the people, would have been able to go ahead and look at every representative in the House and see which way they cast their vote. Yes, make the files, all of the files, fully public. No, keep them hidden. Now, the issue with this is that the House Rules Committee voted no on this today, which means it's not even going to make it to the floor, and we're not going to get to see the way people voted. We can, however, see the way that the handful of people in the House Rules Committee voted. Obviously, we're off to a really bad start. There was one Republican who voted to take it to a vote. So this is so locked down. This conversation is so hidden from all of us. The peasants, we're not the elites, right? The elites are the ones that are up here telling us we can't see what's going on, that are up here committing these heinous acts, that are covering up everyone who's involved with these heinous acts. Everyone below, we're the peasants. We're the lowlifes. We don't get to have any information about what these elite ruling class are doing in the shadows, which is absolutely perverse in every way imaginable. We don't even get to see how other people would vote on it now because the House Rules Committee said, no, that's not even worth taking to the House. How can that even be? How can they do that and live with themselves? And this is where the idea of, like, again, I hate to say it, I'm not saying it as a suggestion. I'm saying this is why long, long ago they said eventually there comes the fourth box, because you have people willingly, openly hiding the worst types of humanity by just saying, nope, we're not even going to ask the question. We're not even going to look into it. You are complicit. You're just as bad, even if you're not actually involved.
Yeah, without a doubt. So Well, oftentimes over the last 79 previous episodes, we've probably mentioned such terms as the uniparty, which we're not responsible, but I think it's a great term. I think it describes what we have to a T. So all this hubbub between Democrat, Republican, it's all bullshit. It's all theater. When it comes down to something like this, who is protecting who? So the Republicans have control of the House, so they have control of the committees. So the Republican committee decided that there was not enough merit to hold a debate in open chamber. They decided that there was not enough information to hold open debate. So who stuck up and protected the criminals that are engaged in this activity? The Republican Party in charge of the committee. They have the chair. They decided, as you pointed out, that there was no further debate and this was just going to get brushed to the side. In fact, President Trump is doing his very best to brush this thing aside and put it under the table. So, all of you, Trump can never do any wrong. For all of you who are having a hard time swallowing the whole concept of the uniparty, that they are both parties are in there to make sure we, the subjects, as you pointed out, stay in our place. And if we challenge the establishment, remember, people, they work for us, not the other way around. But if you happen to have the cojones to stand up and shout out, I want an answer, they beat you back down and they say, there's nothing to see here, move on. And there'll be some other big stir created where, it's another microburst flood of some sort or what have you. There will be something created, sleight of hand, and all of a sudden all of our attention will go elsewhere. We should not be releasing this. We should stay on it. And to the credit of Mike Johnson, who many times I have spoken not so glowingly about, Speaker of the House, he is continuing to push. So there appears to me to be a little rift, or is it more theater? Because at the end of the day, if they don't bring it to the floor and have open debate where the American people have an opportunity to hear what's going on, we're going to get bullshit crammed down our throat, as we do under every administration, and this stuff's going to be brushed under the rug.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up the fact that Trump is just as much a part of this. And yeah, of course, we voted for him like many other people did, thinking that he was going to be helpful for this country in many ways. However, he could have done every other thing right up until this point. And if you are the one who says, there's no list, I'm done. I'm done with you. I don't care who you are. I don't care what letter is behind your name. I don't give a shit. You do not get to just walk away from something this egregious. This is unacceptable on absolutely every level. So, if this many... jump in.
Just for a second. So, you might even see that Matt Gaetz jumped in support of Pam Bondi. And here's the thing. They spend more time wasting time down there in the halls of Congress talking about issues that have no constitutional authority at that level, and they waste time after time after time. The American public is standing up and say, we want answers. Then take it to the floor. If there isn't anything, there ain't anything. But let the whole world see. Those that say they have evidence, let them roll it out. Now, you might happen to also have heard that Ghislaine Maxwell said that she's going to open up the can of worms. Well, let's be very, very careful here. Make sure she's guarded with redundant guards, multiple cameras, 3-4 levels of eyes sitting on her, because who knows what kind of mishap might happen now that there appears to be somebody from we the people that's going to open up the can of worms. So, again, brush all the Republican, Democrat bullshit aside. It's us against them. They are holding us, keeping us in our place, withholding information that the American public has every right and need to see, and they are keeping it from us. It's unacceptable. I don't care who's sitting in the seat, and we need to have answers.
100%. They are all in on it. It has always been us versus them, but nothing makes that more obvious than right now. And absolutely agree about Ghislaine Maxwell, coming out and saying this. Like, look at the footage that even the Trump administration released. This has already been proven to be edited. This is a modified clip. So if it was modified, then why was it modified? And if it wasn't, then why are we not letting it go to the floor? Because if you're so sure that the clip wasn't modified and that there's no list, then take it to the floor and everybody will be made a fool in public because there's nothing to see.
Yep.
But by not allowing it to go further, you're admitting guilt. So, but go ahead.
In addition to that, you might recall a week or two ago when this really started to get some heat under it, this particular issue. They were talking about 1 minute or nearly 1 minute of the videotape being removed or not visible. I just moments ago before we got on, I saw that it's on now almost 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 53 seconds, I believe is what I seen, that are now unaccounted for in the video. So to your point, if there is time that has been cut out, who cut it out? And let's see it. Let's not pretend that there is nothing to see here. If Bondi, sitting in her office, says she has the list on her desk, and now she's backpedaled from that, and there's 2 minutes and 53 seconds or whatever the hell it was that's been cut out of that film for the rest of us to see, then why was that done? Why are we all pretending there's nothing here of suspicious nature? If this were something that law enforcement was truly going to investigate, there is what you call probable cause. There's probable cause. We have people that said they've seen the list. Alan Dershowitz, others have said they've seen the list. Ghislaine Maxwell wants to bring the list forward, but now we're not going to talk about it because there appears to be some momentum gathering toward pointing out these figures that are involved with this. This is intolerable. It's intolerable.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I want to go back to, the people that are on the opposite side of Trump derangement syndrome, which is that Trump can do no wrong. And then even though he has swept this under the rug as much as everyone else in the current administration, there are still people that are going along with that. Now, the flip side to that coin is that there are so many people, I think right now on like the peasant level that are like, well, this proves it. The whole Epstein thing has been Trump's fault all along, and it's just Trump and his cronies, and that's who's on the list. It's like, okay, first of all, you're missing the whole concept of uniparty. If you are getting hung up on the fact that you think it's Trump and we think it's everyone, then we're never going to come together enough to resolve the issue. Right now, there's a lot of us that want the truth to come out. I don't care if you think that Trump is the only issue. I don't care if you're on the way opposite side, which is what I'm about to go into here, where you think this issue runs way deeper and way, way further than Trump could ever be involved with. It doesn't mean he's not. It just means that there's a reason the truth doesn't come out. Why doesn't the truth come out? Well, why do hundreds of the world's wealthiest men gather in the woods of California worshiping Moloch in all kinds of weird ritualistic sessions every year? The answer is the same. Because this is not a new age problem. This is not a Trump problem. This is a centuries old, thousands of years old, the beginning of time old problem. When we talk about a spiritual war, it's not hyperbole. We're talking about the fact that the world's elite have worshipped the god Moloch in the woods of California, in Bohemian Grove, for as long as this country's been around. But the idea of Moloch is not new. This is not a new concept. This is biblical. In Leviticus, it tells you, do not let your children be sacrificed to Moloch. Different spelling, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same guy, because the Moloch being worshipped by the world's elite is a pagan god of child sacrifice. The same people that go to these events, and this is not new, right? Like Alex Jones talked about this 20 years ago. This isn't new shit. This is hundreds of years old, thousands of year old shit. And the only thing that brings me any hope at all is that for the first time since the dawn of humanity, we're talking about this every day. I mean, everyone across the globe is talking about this. This has been hidden in the deepest, darkest depths of society for as long as humans have been on this earth, because it is demonic. It is the occult, and it exists on a spiritual level. This is not a war of Democrats versus Trump. This is a war for the human soul. And in DC right now, hell is winning. So it's up to all of us to make a change in this war, because it's here. I mean, this biblical shit that we talk about and hear about, it's here. It's happening now. This is what this is. And you have to decide what side you're on.
Of course it is. And I think, there's been generations of Americans and others around the world that have been indoctrinated by a compromised education system, and they were caught up in this idea that it's a Republican Democrat thing, and they can pound the war drums and everybody can go down and vote and cast their vote for the opposite team, whatever one you happen not to subscribe to. You can go down and cast your vote and you think you did your part, and you can go back to living your life of leisure and not paying attention and just believing that because you put the next Democrat or the next Republican in it, you've done your part. No, we all have an obligation. The forefathers told us in the Declaration of Independence that we have a right and we have a responsibility to cast off such government. Get rid of it. It's time for torches and pitchforks. We need to root these skunks out. We need to put them on trial, and we need to start with a clean slate, because they have been getting away with us not paying attention, living lives of leisure, and enjoying ourselves. But there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are one of these people that simply go along with whatever that television set says, and you just happen to think that you've done your part because you went down to the ballot box and you cast your vote for the red team or the blue team, you're missing the whole point. We are dealing, as you pointed out, with wrestling with evil. Put on the armor of faith. Put on the helmet of salvation. We are not fighting, as you pointed out correctly so, this Democrat-Republican thing, black, white, gay, straight. This is made to keep us distracted and keep us enslaved. And then those that are committing these atrocities, can get away scot-free because we're down here picking shit with the chickens, absolutely accomplishing nothing, playing into their game plan, chasing each other around as if putting a different set of Republicans or a different set of Democrats in office is going to fix the problem. They call it insanity, people. If you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, expect a different result. That is the definition of insanity. And we as a country have lost our mind because we have not rooted these skunks out, these demons out, these people that participate in this stuff, and anybody that's standing in the way and saying that there should not be open debate, public debate about this, they're part of the problem. That's simple. There is no other, well, maybe they really don't think. No. If they are protecting this, they are part of the problem.
And the problem is so big that it feels like it's not a hill that can be climbed. George Kemper was on with us a couple weeks ago, and that was his whole point. A Hill Worth Dying On. That was his book. And if you've sat idly by through the political theater that has gone on through your whole life, I don't fault you for that because it's very stressful to pay attention to. But we're not talking about politics. We're talking about trafficking and torture of children across the globe. And there's no excuse for that. This is not a political issue. It's absolutely not a political issue. This is not a political episode. We're not even in the realm of talking about, the elections or how people voted or, the bureaucrats in DC. This is none of that. This is so much different and so much bigger and should be the only thing on anyone's mind until it gets resolved. Yep. Period. Like, I don't understand how every single day people are not burning shit to the ground. Yep. It's over for me. Like, I don't know what we have to do to come together on this and like get angry enough and just like we're at the point where it's time to do something because this is the hill worth dying on. Like, the amount of innocent human lives that have been destroyed over centuries by the people that have the audacity to tell us what we owe them every year. Have the audacity to tell us, what kind of car we can drive. They control every aspect of our lives. And the freedom that we talk about all the time about not having on this show, the people who are taking it away are the same people who are doing horrible, horrible things to children. And it's not a conspiracy, because this whole Epstein thing would have never reached even the House Rules Committee. Epstein would have never been a name we would have heard about if this was just some made-up idea. This is a real thing that is happening, that has been happening, that people are continuing to cover up. And if we do not take a stand now, we've lost our souls.
Yep. Let's not get distracted by all the other bullshit that they have been successfully able to keep us off the blood trail. They throw up the black, the white, the Antifa, the this, the that, the gay, the straight, the religious, secular, Republican, Democrat, and we are down here chasing each other around instead of chasing the people, as you point out, that have sacrificed children, that have trafficked children for sexual purposes, underage people, and now we're going to pretend that it doesn't exist. There is all kind of evidence. There's all kind of people that have brought this stuff forward. On the border, children were being brought across the border. What the hell was the name of that movie a year or so back that came out about the children being brought
Sound of Freedom?
Yeah,
is that right?
That sounds about right. And somehow, because we are so gullible, so irresponsible, that we just allow that sort of evidence being brought to the forefront to go past, and we do nothing. Children being brought up to the border with a phone number on their arm, and somebody calls the number and says, yeah, and they declare themselves a relative and go down, and these children are never heard of again. We as a country should be incensed, and we should have done something long ago. Turning on the football game, turning on some other bullshit coming off that television does not fix the problem. We become complicit by not taking action against evil that's right in front of us. And that is what has gone on.
Exactly. So I want to keep talking about these ideas of like conspiracies, and this is all going to tie in. We're going to go a little bit off of the Epstein thing for a minute. Sure. So this is not my idea. I did not come up with this. I have heard a lot of other podcasters talking about it. I shouldn't say a lot. It's obviously not the mainstream podcasters. Has the Mountain Dew theory come across your radar yet?
No, I haven't bumped into that, but is it fairly recent?
Yes, it's a pretty obscure theory. And obviously we're talking, woo-woo hippie conspiracy theory. Maybe hippie's not the right word, but woo-woo conspiracy theory for sure. So basically, there is this theory that every time that Mountain Dew releases like a new limited edition special flavor, a massive catastrophe happens. So I wrote down a couple of them. They go through a longer list when these different podcasters have been talking about it. But basically, when Code Red came out, that was 3 months prior to 9/11. Code Red, 9/11. Maui burst 3 months prior to the Maui wildfires. The Star Spangled Splash was right before the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed. Francis Scott Key obviously wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Splash, bridge falls into the water. The Pitch Black was right before the big IT blackout last summer, the summer of 2024. Now, when these podcasters were first talking about this was right before the floods in Texas. Like, it was a week or two before. And they talked about how the next flavor coming out was called Mango Rush. And it was only going to be a limited item. It was only going to be sold at Little Caesars. And they were like, oh, that's so weird. Maybe there's going to be like a flood. And they're like, well, it's only sold at Little Caesars. What state has the most Little Caesars? And they were like, I don't know. I feel like Texas. And literally like within a week, we have this Camp Mystic flood. I'm not saying this is reality. I'm not saying that Mountain Dew is in on some big secret. However, we have talked many times about how there is so much weirdness going on behind the scenes. It's like The Simpsons. There's all these weird things that happen. And then it happens in the show 10 years ago and happens in real life. It's like, this is not a new concept. And I've talked about it on the show before about how it's something that exists, and I couldn't remember like what the name of it was, but one term for it is the revelation of the method. And it's this concept that goes back to like early Freemason days. And it's this idea that the elites, those in power, have to tell us, they have to give notice of their supremacy. And there's several reasons for this. Some believe it's karmic. They have to let us know so that, you know, in whatever afterlife they think they have, they're not punished because they told us.
Okay.
Yeah, and we basically accepted it by doing nothing. But there's also those that speculate that the concept of the revelation of the method is basically designed to show us how little power we have. By continuing to tell us what they're going to do, and by it continuing to happen, and by us continuing to not be able to control the outcome, as a species, we start to inherently learn, we're being taught through pattern, that we have no power and nothing that we do can change these things that they are going to do to us. So it basically demoralizes the population on a grand scale, which when you think about, you know, the WEF and all of these insane things that they've done that go back to, you know, population control, which is ultimately their end goal. And you think about what those goals are and what they've publicly stated. And then you think about this concept of needing to demoralize humanity on a big scale. That's why we become distracted. That's how we get sucked into these distractions, because one, we think we can't do anything. Two, all hope is lost. So we grasp for things that feel like they're giving us something, which is why we end up being, you know, addicted to phones and football and whatever it might be that are keeping people away from what's really important. So there's all these concepts. And the reason that I bring it up in this specific situation, not that I think Mountain Dew is like the culprit here. It's just there's so many times in pop culture that we can see these little clues. And then it does happen. And just like I said in last week's episode, at a certain point, it's not coincidence anymore. Coincidences exist, but not that often. I don't believe in them happening that often. It doesn't make sense. There's something bigger. And if they are all coincidences, then what's linking them? Like, what evil entity is linking these things and allowing them to come to be? So, let's loop all the way back. Mountain Dew, floods in Texas, Epstein. Why do I say that? Here's another theory I've heard, and this one is off the wall, so don't quote me, anyone listening to this. I'm just telling you what I heard. There are people who speculate that the Camp Mystic thing was on purpose. Okay, yeah, we talked about Rainmaker. We talked about Augustus Dorico. We talked about weather modification. What we didn't talk about is the fact that maybe this specific location could have been a target. Again, I don't know. I'm telling you what I've seen online and haven't had enough time to go back and corroborate. There are theories that Camp Mystic is predominantly frequented by the children of conservative families. It's a Christian girls' camp, so you could kind of see how that might be true. Conservative Christian families, many who have had roles in the government or the military, and people seem to believe, if you look online, that maybe many of these people are kind of on the outside because they've chosen not to go along with the other people in their positions. So they're kind of on the outside because maybe they've already chosen to speak out against some of the evil that's going on at this high level. And allegedly, there are some people who claim that there were servers that were wiped prior to the flood coming through, that cell phone towers were down, which we could just attribute that to weather, right? We don't want to go too off the rails here, but let's just think about it for the sake of thinking about it. And there were people who claim there were helicopters and stuff flying around before the flood warnings even went out in the area of Camp Mystic.
Yep. Saw all of that. I saw all that stuff. Speculation,
So,
but or uncorroborated, but I heard those stories. Yes.
okay, so if all of these things are true, then there's really no question of what's actually going on anymore, because that means they're starting to target people for speaking out. They're starting to target people who are speaking out against basically child sacrifice, pedophilia on a grand scale. And it's certainly not to say that this is the first time people have been targeted, because there is a damn good reason that the truth hasn't come out. This is an age-old problem. Just like I said in the beginning of this episode, this has been going on for thousands of years, and it's been kept secret from nearly the entire population. How do you keep a secret that big for that long if there is not really somebody who has all these people by the balls in a big, big way? And we've talked about that before. You know, who's making these decisions? Like, why are Trump and all these people who we had such faith in not sticking to their guns? Like, what is going on? Who has these people in such a chokehold that they cannot stand for what they know is right, what they promised they were going to go down there and stand for?
Yep.
That is what remains to be seen. But we have the Freemason ideology of the revelation of the method, and we have examples of it. The Mountain Dew theory is just one of them. We have potentially a place like Camp Mystic, children being targeted once again, being used as a tool. All of these things continue to point to the fact that this is a spiritual war. I mean, there's only so many times I can say that and reiterate it. You either get it or you don't. But I bring all of this stuff up tonight because if we don't start questioning the bigger picture, the secret continues. And I am happy to see that so many people have come to see the truth. Maybe we don't know what to do with it yet, but there is such an awakening to this level of evil. Maybe people aren't quite aware of like all the terrible things that happen with politicians all the time with just like a basic scale, right? The normal day-to-day things. But people are really starting to wake up to the fact that like there's really, really evil things going on with the most elite people in the world, government members or otherwise. And like I said earlier, I don't think there was ever this many people who saw that truth. It still might not be enough, but this has been kept a secret for thousands of years, and it feels like we're finally starting to scratch the surface. And yeah, the assholes in DC are still trying their damnedest to keep this shit covered up. But for the first time, it feels like we're close.
Yeah. Well, you know, so much to go back over there. It really had a lot. One of the things I want to throw out real quick, Shinzu, you know, the art of war and all that. He pointed out however long ago that was, very, very long ago. People still study it today. Deception is the key to winning a war. You have to deceive your opponent into making them believe you're doing something else. So I think this plays well into what you're describing. If we are deceived and we are fussing over our outfits and our TV shows and our nonsense, and we are refusing subsequently to look with any serious intent on evaluating, investigating, and discovering the truth, because we're picking shit with the chickens. We're down here playing with meaningless stuff, thinking that we are doing so much of value, and we aren't even on the trail. So, deception. This is an age-old tactic to win in the war. You deceive your enemy into believing something else. So we have been deceived by Republicans, by Democrats, by everybody. We've been deceived. We're not even looking. To go back to your comments about the Mountain Dew, hadn't heard anything about that. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. If somebody has connected those dots, this should be eye-opening. Like you mentioned a week or so ago, are we living in the Matrix? I don't know what the meat and potatoes is behind that, but if there are significant events tied into the name of a globally recognized product, we should all stop and ponder this. We should all begin to question everything, everybody, anybody who may have any inkling of what is going on at that level. I don't know what the truth is, but I know they ain't telling it to us. I know they're keeping us distracted with bullshit so we don't get on the blood trail and bring this thing to fruition. And largely, and I'm so hopeful when you talk about people are starting to ask and they're starting to get interested, that is the only way we can fix this. Pretending there isn't a problem fixes nothing, and by our complacency, we become complicit in assisting those that would be harming others and lying to us about it. And incidentally, as you pointed out, it's bad enough that we get wars started and we get diseases started and we get all kind of man-made shit happening to us. This is children. If you can't get up off your seat to defend a child, you're already lost. You are already lost. And I might suggest that you are part of the evil amongst us. If you can't get up off your seat to demand answers and defend children all over this country is the biggest consumer in the child sex trade around the world. That should be unacceptable. We ought to be tearing down the walls of that shithole down there and lynching everybody that is involved. I'm sorry. That is the outcome that is required by us. We need to take action, drastic action. And if there is somebody down there that is covering for people or participating in the abuse of children, we need to take action. Period.
100%. And you mentioned earlier, put on the full armor of God. And it's not the first time that we've called attention to this verse in the Bible, but the rest of that goes on to say, we are not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're wrestling against principalities, against rulers of darkness. Like, think whatever you want, whatever your religious ideology and background is, think whatever you want, but understand that the forces of good and evil in this world are so much older than anything in and of this world. This is a truly, like, you don't have to believe in God if you don't want to. I'm not going to tell you what to do and how to live your life. But there are parts of the Bible that you might want to read if you want to start understanding what happens next. Because this is a real thing that is happening. And you just brought up the point that if you're not engaged with what is going on now against these rulers of darkness, then you're part of the evil. And I truly believe that. The thing that I think can get frustrating for people on, the Christian side of this conversation, or honestly any, religious side, is that sometimes they think what they're meant to do is sit back and to pray on it. And I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but it's not the only thing you're supposed to do. What the good forces in this world demand, what God demands, is strength, courage, a warrior's attitude. He tells you to put on the full armor of God. He tells you to protect the vulnerable. He's not saying, I'm going to fight this fight for you. He's saying, I'll have your back when you do. And if we don't start stepping up, as I said earlier in this episode, we have lost our souls. This is a fight for the souls of humanity. Like, you want to go down big conspiracy rabbit holes? Start looking into those things. Start looking into the occult and how much the good and the evil are in a constant battle for the souls that are living on this world right now. So pick your side.
That is so well said. I have such a hard time trying to wrap my head around folks that don't become engaged and take a broader view of what's going on in the world. It becomes very frustrating. We've spent 80 episodes now really in an effort to try and encourage people to wake up, take a look around, dig deeper. Don't sit there listening to that blather box with all of the garbage and the bullshit promoting this evil right in front of our face. Get away from it, shut it off, take a look at reality, Don't look at what you've been told. Take a look at reality. And if there are hundreds, thousands of just children in this country disappearing yearly, mind you, yearly, and nobody is asking, the whole power of government is not working to remedy that, then they're in on it. It's that simple. If you are talking about kids being exploited, being shipped around the country for sexual purposes, and every iota and every department and every person involved in government is not pursuing these things to a just end, then guess what? They're part of the damn problem. We got to wake up. This is not the bullshit that they've crammed down our throat. It is so much bigger, and we are out by being placated and sitting back and paying no attention. We are giving them a clear path to continue down this road. It is unacceptable. It is so beyond unacceptable that we sit back and become distracted with nonsense, with bullshit, instead of fighting the fight that we are charged with fighting, as you just described. We have been given the task of fixing this problem.
Yep.
And by us
precisely
sitting on our hands, we ain't doing our job.
Yep. That's exactly right. If you didn't have the truth, so you weren't doing anything, that's okay. But if you have the truth and you're choosing not to stand up and do something about it, you are, as you said, I'm reiterating it one final time, part of the issue, period.
Yeah. Complacency is complicity. And you said yourself earlier tonight, we had the wonderful guest on back a few weeks ago, author of the book, A Hill Worth Dying On. At some point, we got to say, nope, I'm not accepting that. A hill worth dying on. And we should not, cannot be accepting children being exploited for sexual purposes or any other. We should not be accepting that at any level, let alone coming from those that are sitting in the highest places.
Yep. Yeah, so kind of a heavy episode, but as long as this conversation is still going on, they're likely all going to be heavy. There's a lot here, and it's not going away. So if you come back next week, probably expect more depressing, angry conversation.
It's going to be interesting because there does appear to be some rifts between various segments of leadership at the highest levels. Now, it'll be interesting to watch and see if they get quieted down, and who knows what kind of threats or otherwise gets placed upon the people that might be interested in trying to bring something to the forefront. Or is it all theater and they're going to go through this song and dance to make it look like somebody's really digging in? I don't know. But to say that there's no evidence and to say that there's no list and to say that nothing went on, as we got pictures of Bill Clinton sitting around with a dress on, come on, people. I don't care what side of the aisle you come from. You ought to be saying, I want to know what's behind all this shit. I want to know what kind of criminal activities people were involved with. And guess what? If it all flushes out and all the information is brought forward, I will be happy to say that I was wrong. I will be happy to say. But until I have all that evidence disclosed to me and I can do a thorough evaluation of the evidence, I want to see that. There's lots and lots of us out here that are proclaiming the same thing. We demand answers, not bullshit from these people sitting in that office, not Trump, not leaders of this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle. I want the answers. I want the evidence. I'll decide whether or not I'm interested enough to read the gory details, but I want the answers. We demand the answers. In this country, we the people rule, not these skunk criminals that have been cramming this bullshit down our throats for the last 150 years or beyond.
Yep. Yeah, boom. That pretty much seals it up, I think, for tonight's episode. We will certainly be back next week with any updates that have happened through the week. Hopefully something in the right direction. But your job in the meantime is to stay consistent. If you could call your representatives about anything, this is the time to do it. Call everyone, call anyone, make noise, be upset, be angry, be loud, because it should piss you off. And yeah, that's your homework for this week. Pops, you want to sign us off?
Yeah. And one other hint along that line, one of the things that we were told probably between 25 and 30 years ago One of the most effective way to get your voice heard is through email. Every congressperson, every senator, they have staffers that are reading through these emails and they're marking down this issue, this issue, this issue, and they're going to give you a canned answer. They're going to give you an answer that may not even relate to the information or the question that you send in, but they are making notes, some staffer, and if they get bombarded with notes that are saying, we demand answers, somebody might start asking some questions, and if it's a person that's not embroiled in this bullshit, perhaps they'll drive something across the finish line, so maybe someday we all get the truth. I think that's an easy task. It doesn't cost you anything. You can sit at home 15 minutes. You can type up a letter, send it to your congressman, send it to your senator, send it to Trump's office. I try to send one every single week. Get out there, get involved, make sure your voice is being heard. We, the people, run this country, and we want answers to what kind of criminality has been going on. Okay, we always close with a verse. I do have a verse. It comes from Ephesians. We talked a lot about what comes out of Ephesians, putting on the full armor of God. This comes from Ephesians a little earlier on in the book of Ephesians, but this is, therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Ephesians 4:25. With that, from the sunny shores of the Finger Lakes in upstate New York, very happy to have joined you with the fourth box tonight, and until next week,
stay vigilant.
Stay vigilant. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.